asking questions. She's going to keep it kind of relaxed so she can ask questions during her presentation. So I'll turn it over now.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Feel free to call me Antoinette. I have been working on this type of presentation for some time now. When it comes to online education, we've all seen students that are in our class. We can see their name, and that's all we can see of them. Okay? How do you find ways to engage those students? So I want to open up with that question. For those who've taught online and also traditional, how do you engage your students? Anybody?
Videos.
Discussion.
Videos.
Videos. Videos.
Breakout rooms.
Breakout rooms.
Or they post a project,
Icebreakers.
a project, and then everyone view it and discuss it
Okay.
online.
So a lot of discussions are going on. So what I'd like to discuss in this presentation is something that I've learned from one of my schools. And I actually teach for quite a few universities. But most schools for online need live classes. Okay? So somewhere they need live classes. This is how the online student can connect with you. And we've all seen it. We've been in online classes ourselves. We've seen or heard of our instructor, but do we have that connection? Can that instructor see our name and actually interact with us? Okay? So let's begin there. When it comes to live classes, of course, they're at a particular time. And we all know that our online students don't necessarily live in our time zone. So how do you accommodate that particular student? I live in Eastern Standard Time, and I had a student who lived in Arabia. How do you accommodate that type of student? Anybody?
Off hours.
Off hours?
So we've had classes at some points that have been at unusual times, so we have them at like 10 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives us a little more flexibility with time zones, and it also gives us the chance to work with people who are working 8 to 5.
Okay. What else?
If you use like Zoom video conferencing, you can record the session. That way they can go back and watch what took place.
Now, recording sessions. How many people are familiar with Zoom? I've actually used Zoom quite a few times. The best part about Zoom that I've had, especially for my student who lived in Arabia, were those live class sessions. Okay? This particular student in Arabia happened to stay awake until 4 a.m. his time to actually attend the live class. Doesn't happen that often. Okay? But what about for those students who are busy parents or busy students? They don't have time to stay up to 4 a.m. They got to be at work at 8. We have to find ways to make the same access for students who are there at 8 a.m. or those who cannot be there at 8 a.m. Okay? So with one of my schools, I actually post a link no more than an hour after the session is over, because some students are putting their kids to bed. Other people are just getting off work. Other people are on their way to work and they can listen to it in the car. Okay? So for live classes, the best thing I've seen is Zoom conferencing. Very easy to use. It's similar to, I want to say Skype, but you can always have more than one student loaded. Way, way better. I totally agree. Now, discussions. We've all been in discussions where they start good and end bad. Now, when I say start good, when you say, what is your introduction? And somebody says, hi, my name is Kaylee, and I live in Moorhead, Minnesota, period. You've seen it. The one sentences or the one words. How do you engage those students to add more? Because there are students who've written 2 paragraphs, and this student has written 1 sentence and wants the same credit as the person who had 2 paragraphs. How do you make sure that that information is clear for that student so that they know this is your discussion, this is your full intro? How do you do that?
You could show a discussion you've had in the past that you would grade with full points, then do one that is partial points, and then do one that would get 0 points. So it's kind of modeling. That's what I would call that.
So you have your rubric and then your examples.
Correct.
Okay, very good.
Open-ended question. You start with them, and then I am one of the first persons that answers and
Now, open-ended questions. Are we saying just open-ended questions regarding curriculum, or maybe something fun or exciting? Both. Okay, one of my discussion questions is, what is your favorite flavor of Kool-Aid? And I kid you not, everybody responds to it. Why? Because there's a picture of Kool-Aid Man. And everybody's like, I got to respond to that. And it's really good discussion. You have to find ways to gauge these students where they are. A lot of them may not know right off how to jump into the content. But when you start off with something fun, something exciting, something that they actually drink, they are more likely to participate. What are some other discussion prompts that you use that have worked?
favorite guilty pleasure of reality television.
Yes.
And that's awesome.
Guilty pleasure what?
Favorite guilty pleasure for reality television. Like,
Wait.
say out loud.
Discussion prompts. Discussion prompts. We got reality TV. What else have you used?
One discussion about personality. I relate
Personality to a TV character. Okay, let's go with that around the table. If you had a personality and you can relate it to a TV character, what would it be? I would say my personality is more relatable to Inspector Gadget. That is the only cartoon character that I miss the bus to watch every day. What would your personality be with a cartoon character?
I have no clue right now.
No clue. Think about it. We'll be back.
kind of out there too. I really didn't watch cartoons.
I didn't either.
I don't either.
I was more of a sitcom girl.
Which sitcom?
Oh, I probably, I'm trying to think of someone who's incredibly like type A or OCD, because that would be me.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
Sheldon.
not that extreme, but maybe a female version.
Okay.
My internal dialogue is Jessica Jones.
Jessica Jones.
But not internally, like what my head is doing.
Okay.
So my son is on a kick watching all the old school Scooby-Doos right now.
Yes.
After he watches them, he then assigns my husband and I and our dog to various roles to play, and I always get some Velma.
But Velma is very, very smart. That is a compliment.
Yeah.
Smurfs. Which one? Okay. Very good. What would you be?
Well, I feel very old, so maybe Wilma Flintstone.
Wilma Flintstone. You're the one that's pedaling in the car.
Yeah, I feel like I would say also Sheldon.
Sheldon? Okay.
Yeah, Sheldon.
Sheldon? What would you like to do? If you think of it, let us know.
I would go along with Velma. I like anyone on criminal investigation. She's pretty close to that.
I'd say Minnie Mouse. And she's kind of a problem solver, and she's kind of bossy.
See? What would you like
I'd probably
to
go with Wilma. I'm
Wilma.
always pedaling.
So as you can see from one prompt, we got quite a few responses. It has to be something that is human, okay? Because we can all relate to human discussions. Even with intros, my students love posting pictures of their children, toddlers, actually sitting still. And we know it's not going to last long, but they're actually sitting still, okay? You want to create prompts that students can relay on and go back to. Because this is their, I guess you could say, this is their lifeblood of the class. This is how they interact, because if they don't come to live class, how can they continue that discussion with other students?
I have a good one that
Sure.
I think is, tell me something about yourself that we would not know about you.
Oh.
That would be very interesting. And that has caused more discussion for students, and then they make connections. That's a good one. And I say it has to be really clean. It can't be something
Oh, yes. Yes, disclaimers are always good. Always.
I do the same thing because when I was first hired as a faculty member, we did the same kind of thing as round robin. And one of the questions was who was a race car driver, and I couldn't fathom who that was, and it was her. I never would have guessed in a million years, but there was a lot of discussion with the movies, as far as how could that be.
Oh, yeah. What about 3 truths and a lie? I've done that before, but at the same token, you have to think about it. Now, which one is the lie? Okay? So in a live class setting, if students were to write in a discussion board, these are my 3 truths and a lie, you have to actually go back to that and say, hey, Kaylee, I read your post. Now, which one of these is a lie? Give the group a chance to respond and then figure out which one is the lie. Okay? The goal with online courses is to continue to have that back and forth. There's a lot of online courses that start and drop. Okay? We've all seen it in our evaluations. Students want that active engagement. Okay? Now let's go a step further. How do you use telephone to engage students? Anybody have a unique way that they engage students in terms of outreach? We're talking about online courses. How do you do outreach outside of inbox?
Calling students
Calling students.
is like a midterm check-in.
So what if you got 50 students? You're going to do 50 calls?
You have to.
Okay. What else?
I mean, ideally your course is not that large, but
It could be. But still 50 calls are very good. What else?
I'm online. I did a welcome call service.
How did that go?
A lot of the students, especially when I taught math, a lot of them would say, "Oh, I'm so nervous. I'm so glad you called."
I know.
They would be so glad after I talked to them. Like, "Don't worry, it's gonna be okay. I'll be fixing this." You know, and I just told them about the tools that we have available to help them, and then they feel more at ease going into it.
Right. So what I've done with discussions and in terms of telephone communications, I do Google Voice text. Everybody heard of Google Voice? Google Voice has an area where you can send actual text messages to the student's telephone. I do it twice a week because that gives these students an opportunity to say, hey, my instructor's looking at my grades. I have 10 more topics to do, and she said I need it done by Sunday. Okay? These voice texts work better than discussions. They work better than me actually telling them, turn this in on Sunday in a live class. It's that personal connection with students. We've all seen students who text in our class. They can receive our text as well, correct? Students love that personal feel, that my instructor took some time out of their day to look and see that I'm a little bit behind. And also, when you do those personal text messages, it gives them a chance to actually tell you what's going on in their world. So it's not going to be just one text. It's going to be, hey, I went to the hospital, or hey, I just had my baby. Oftentimes you won't see this in inboxes because student has to initiate it. But when instructors initiate it, it's like, oh, my instructor really cares about me. And I think I should, make a note of this in my evaluation. Okay? Just this last semester, I instituted these Google Voice texts. Had a conversation with my supervisor on some things that we can do to bring the rates up. They were already in the 80s, but we want 90. Do you know over the past 5 to 8 weeks, I have committed, because of course, doing any type of communication is a commitment. I committed to twice a week to contacting students through Google Text and inboxes. We are now up to 90%. Okay? So it has to be a combination of things, because some students won't respond to one, but they may respond to the other. Yes?
So did you, at the beginning of the class, did you say, can I contact you through cell phone, or did you just get their cell phone? How did you do that?
Well, what I did was, it's already understood that when students sign into a particular system, they put their cell phones on there for access for their coaches and their instructors. So it's already there for our use. We use Canvas. But they use a different system for student management, and students put all their cell phones and information in there. So I'm able to Google Voice text quite often.
I don't feel like I would have to ask if I can contact them through
Sure.
first. And that's why I was wondering if anybody had done that.
So how do you get the numbers out of your management system?
I get them from a different system. We use Fidelis with a different school. And what I do is I go in, I sign in, and under that student profile, it's called Instructor Sherpa. I have all of my students, all of their emails, and all of their contact numbers.
So then you take that to Google Voice,
Yes.
plug it in, send your text?
And click send. And it goes straight to their cell phone.
And when they respond back to you, do you get it as an email, as a text message? How are you
It
getting
comes in as an email.
As an email, okay.
To my school email. See, I connect it to my phone, my regular phone, and I connect it to my regular email.
Okay, I thought you were talking about getting like text messages on your phone, and I was like, I would have trouble with boundaries. Like,
Sure.
Because then you find yourself working constantly, and you can constantly answering text messages, and I already do that with my children. So, yeah, that's a great idea.
And then we find there's no permanent record of that communication from later.
Exactly, and that way you're not getting. Because I did give out my cell number 1 year for emergencies, and so I had people at 2 o'clock in the morning texting me emergencies.
No.
And one time, luckily I was awake and I had an infant, but build boundaries. You know, how do you, when you're teaching online,